welcome everybody to the next episode of Chiefs Focus First and 10 live. You're here with JP, Caleb, and Quentin. What's up, guys?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing tonight?
Well, the Kansas City Chiefs scored the exact amount of points on their bye week as the Raiders did.
They did.
Yeah. It is a sad situation in Vegas. And I got a feeling I don't think McDaniels is going anywhere. A lot of people thought he was going to get launched after today. Don't think that's going to happen. I think they'll wait it out at least through next season. But I have a feeling they're going to do a fire sale.
You think so?
And I don't think Carr's going to be there next year. So
well,
I just have a feeling he's done.
I'll say this. They have struggled, and that doesn't surprise me at this point, to be honest with you. Just kind of the way things have gone. I mean, Quentin, you've known this too, kind of when you're looking at the Raiders. They've really struggled, and because of that, they're not in a good spot. And they got a first and a second round pick for Davante Adams. No, they traded away their first and second round picks for Davante Adams. I mean, that's going to really hurt a team in the future. So whatever happens, I mean, they're going to have to figure it out because they, like you said, scored the same amount of points that the Chiefs ended up scoring. So they are not in a good spot.
No,
yeah, what's crazy is that, if you exclude this week, if you look past what they had done over the last month of football, the offense was actually clicking. They were moving the ball efficiently down the field. They were scoring points. They scored almost 30 when we were facing the Chiefs. They were moving the ball effectively, getting their run game involved. They have weapons. Davante Adams. They have Josh Jacobs has had a few games where he just blows the lid off of some teams. So they have some good offensive weapons there. It's just that defense, specifically the defensive backfield, is just so bad. They can't seem to get out of their own way, and they can't put anybody away. That's what happens in that Cardinals game where when you can't put teams away. We see this is what happened in Kansas City before. If you can't depend on your defense to go up and to be able to seal the game away, you're gonna lose close games. And that's what's happened to the Raiders. And then today, I mean, the offense was so bad. Davante Adams got 3 yards. He had one reception for 3 yards. So
yeah,
that's like the Davante Adams we're used to.
Yeah, it's already fantasy owners out there because he only got 1 catch for 3 yards, and it looked bad. It was so bad that I think on NFL Red Zone they showed the game maybe 3 times. It was not competitive at all.
Well, I will say this, Quentin. I had Calvin Kamara in my fantasy team, so I was very, very happy with the results. I picked the Raiders to win this game because I thought the Saints were going to struggle, but Alvin Kamara did a lot, and I feel like they're showcasing him to possibly trade him because he had 3 touchdowns. I don't think he's had 3 touchdowns for a while now. So to see that happen was really, really good.
Yeah. Well, it sounded like somebody, an ex-Chief, sealed the fate in that game. So, I mean, everybody said, "Oh, we want him back." No, we don't really want him back. I mean, he did kind of help as far as the ending of the game, but we don't want him back. So a lot of things went on today that were kind of unexpected. And as you can see at the bottom of our screen, guys, all the scores are there. Did not expect a 49-point game coming from the Cowboys. I don't know if anybody else did. I didn't have that in my mind at all. But they scored 49 points. That's pretty strong. Couple teams, again, fell off. Rams being one of them, which is kind of common for the Rams. I mean, the last time they had a Super Bowl run, they had a horrible following season. They didn't make the playoffs. So there's been questions swarming about Kareem Hunt, about every other player that's, again, on the trade block. What I'm hearing and what I think is going to happen is Kareem Hunt's going to end up with the Rams.
You think so?
Yes.
So they're going to be like a switch for Cam Akers, basically, and probably some picks?
Probably.
Does he even want to go there? Because looking the way I'm going to tell you now, the Rams aren't making the playoffs. It's going to be the Seahawks and the 49ers. All the 49ers need a chance. And if they can get into the playoffs, the 49ers are going to be fine. because everything at that point 0-0, and they have the weapons. I mean, just to see what they did today, they completely dismantled the Rams. And I think they can do that to a lot of other NFL teams too.
I think so too. I mean, they're no joke. I mean, look, when you've got, you know, a ground game like they have, a great offensive line, and then also Christian McCaffrey throwing 34-yard touchdowns, that helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, that was one of Andy Reid's plays, but who cares? A lot of people mimic what he does.
It's a copycat league.
Anyway,
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think, you know, the Bills, there was a lot of rumors about the Bills wanting Hunt as well, and they were going to go after him. I think the only reason the Bills would go after him is if we wanted him back, or if they knew for certainty that he was coming to the Chiefs, or you know, another team that's a rival to them right now. And I mean, if you look through the AFC, there's not a whole lot of rivals. I mean, Miami and the Jets are probably going to beat them at least. Well, Miami's already beat them once. I think the Jets may beat them once as well. And I think, to be honest with you, I think the Patriots will beat them. The Bills. Okay. But as far as Kareem Hunt is concerned, for all the fans out there that are really wanting to know, I don't think he's coming back. It's not that we don't want him back. He definitely wants to play for the Chiefs.
Is his deal expiring right now, or is he just basically? So he has one more full year.
Well, this will be his last season. He's a free agent next year.
Well, I'm saying the possibility he could come up back maybe next year, but I don't think Veach is. The only way Veach is probably going to trade a pick unless it's something very comparable to what he wants to do. I personally prefer the Chiefs to get a defensive player before they get Kareem Hunt, but I can understand if they wanted to go that route.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see is the Chiefs are still going to make at least one move, maybe two. They're, you know, a lot of things flew all over Twitter today, which is not a great thing to have happen. We talked about this. It's just not a great idea to have this stuff flying all over the place. We lose great players when it happens, especially when a local guy decides to retweet it. I understand when the national guys do it and they get in trouble for doing it. A couple of them have been really ousted by a few NFL teams for announcing trades when they shouldn't be, when they're asked not to. Pelissero's done it. Garofalo's done it. Garofalo got in trouble, as a matter of fact, for doing it. It's something that has to quit at some point. I guess what people don't understand, I get the whole you guys want to be first stuff and all that. We've known about that trade for how long, Caleb?
Wait, talking about the Josh Allen situation?
The Josh Allen situation. I mean, it's been over.
I mean, I know we were talking about this summer. That's something they could probably get because he was a great defensive lineman. And
well,
I know
I'm talking about for right now. I mean, we've known about what the Chiefs have been trying to do here in the last for 2 weeks, but we didn't put it out all over. Now we put hints, but we don't put it out all over the place because it's just not something you want to do. It's just not a good idea. Nobody wants us any better, and I know it's really difficult for people to understand that, but they don't want us to get any better than we already are. So, you know, it's similar like with the Tony situation. I mean, like we talked about, Veach more than likely grabbed Andy, grabbed Mahomes, made them leave their phones in an office, and walked into the woods to talk about that deal.
No, they went over to the hill where people tailgate and said, we're going to go all the way over there. There's no cameras. Yeah. There's nothing. We could talk there. There's nothing there. We could talk. No one will be able to take what we're going to talk about.
Exactly. So, I mean, you know, they probably did it in code and everything else because they did not want that coming out. And for nobody that we've talked to know about it, I mean, that was pretty insane. I mean, nobody knew that was coming. Veach really wanted that on the down low, and I'm happy with the trade. I think we might see a player or two disappear off of our roster pretty quick. Somebody put out today that what was it? One of the local guys put out something about how we cleared the Frank Clark suspension is the reason why he is on the team. That's not how that. I mean, yes, it's probably right now the reason why he can be added to the 53-man roster, but that's not going to how it's going to be going forward.
Someone will probably get cut.
Is either going to get cut or put on IR or, you know, something or traded. I mean, you know, just outright released.
I mean, we still got a full day and then a few hours left of the trade deadline, so anything can happen at this point.
Yeah, it's 4 p.m. Eastern, and then you give them a little bit of time if there's already a deal working. So you might as well say 5 p.m. Eastern. So I think something's going to happen. They're not going to bring in Tony and not utilize him. Everybody thinks it's for next year, but it's partially for this year as well.
Now, my question to you guys is, I want to hear from Quentin first. Do you think Tony is basically Hardman's replacement?
I think to some extent, yes, because I've said this for a while now that I don't think Hardman, no matter how Hardman performs this year, I don't think he's back on this team because either the Chiefs don't see him as a valuable asset in this offense if he performed poorly this year, or he performs well enough that he's going to get a Christian Kirk-style contract where he's going to get a huge payday because some team sees the potential that he has, and so he'll go sign somewhere else. So I think calling that, the quote-unquote Hardman replacement, I think the Chiefs do need some weapons for next year. And I do partially believe that this was a move more for the future, too, because I've talked about this, too. You have to rebuild that wide receiver core this coming offseason. The only guys under contract are MVS, Tony, and Ross. Who's on the IR. Those are the only guys that are under contract. So you getting this, and he's probably going to become the new punt returner. And Andy Reid, if they want to, they'll have some packages just for him, ready to roll. So he's probably going to get a little bit into the offense as the year goes on, but there is only so many touches to go around.
That's fair.
So I don't see him becoming, a huge cog in the wheel, but he will get involved in this offense. I do just get for more as a future play because of how cheap his contract is. I think the biggest cap hit is in 2 years, and it's like $2.35 million.
Yeah, it's cheap.
It's not a lot at all.
It's a great move by Veach.
And I do think it is very much of looking to the future and making sure that you're able to have weapons. So when next year comes around, when the draft comes around, you're not scrambling around trying to fill your roster. And end up looking like Green Bay, where you just don't have anybody around Patrick Mahomes. This way, you sort of get ahead of the problem, and you're able to put weapons around Patrick Mahomes. Because we know Patrick Mahomes is great, but we never want to see Patrick Mahomes with no weapons around him.
That's fair. That's fair.
Okay,
no, I
Chris
agree.
Style asking, Chris Style, do you guys think the Chiefs are still in play for Odell? Because I've seen that floating around. Yes. As long as he continues on the trajectory that is laid out, then yes.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's going to be there's nothing 100% in the NFL, Chris, but so far, I guess no news is good news. And the last thing I had heard was this signing was not a deterrent for Odell Beckham Jr. That's another player that it seems like is a done deal for the most part. I can't say it is or isn't, but so far everything has sounded like it's good. We just have to find out. What I do know is that he was going to wait until the trade deadline before he announced it, but that's okay. I mean, that's something he does. He made a decision to do that, and that's okay.
And the one thing I would add to that too, I mean, the Veach still has cap room to work with, so he can make any move at any time to help. Now, if current people were to restructure, I think it'd be more likely because if the Chiefs were to say sign Odell, then bring someone else in on the defensive line, I feel like at that point you're going to have to do some type of restructure with a player like Mahomes, maybe Chris Jones, or anyone else. But I think that it's very possible they could get Odell. And if they do get him, hey, that's better for this team because, look, you can't guard everyone. You can't double team. Everyone's going to be single coverage. It's going to help everyone out as a whole. So I think if it were to happen, it's just going to help elevate the offense to a whole nother level. I know the Bills have been one of the teams he's been kind of looking at. He might go to the Bills. Now, I don't want that to happen, but that seems like the next team right there. So there's a lot of different things that could happen there.
Well, they're seeing us make these moves, and everything that we do, everything the Bills may do is predicated on what we're doing. So they know that really the only team in the league right now that is in their way is us.
And the Chiefs took him down to the wire with missing quite a few weapons. And we didn't have Duffy. We didn't have Willie Gay. Did we have anyone missing on offense? Did Trey Smith not play?
Yeah, I actually want
Trey
to hit
Smith
on
was
that.
actually injured as well.
Okay, go ahead, Glenn.
Chris, to sort of expand on your Odell question, I think the Odell thing will be sort of a shorter term play as the Tony trade is a long term play. I think that the Chiefs, we need to knock on some wood, throw some salt over our shoulder, any good luck charm that you can think of, because we haven't had a lot of injuries, significant injuries on this team. We look at other teams in the league like the Chargers, who are in the Hall of Fame IR right now because of how many guys that they are missing, acquisition they had in the offseason, or just really good players in general. Kansas City's been a pretty healthy team. We've seen guys banged up and are really pushing through injuries, but everybody really is at this point. So if an injury were to happen in the wide receiver room, I think Odell would be a great guy to bring in and fill whatever that role may be. So just to have him on the roster would be beneficial to that.
Well, I can tell you this. He definitely does not want to be a one-year rental anymore, ever. And I've gotten rumblings that the contract, if it were to happen, is going to be longer than 1 year. He wants to find a home and stay there. I think that, and I don't want to go too far into what the Chiefs have said as far as what they're willing to do, but I do know that it's longer than 1 year. But he is a great third down threat. Also, you bring him in, he's going to be ready about mid-November, maybe around Thanksgiving, he'll be ready to play. So if that's the case, great.
So what would his contract look like if he came mid-November? Would he be making the veteran minimum that's $750, so it's like $800,000, or would he be making significantly less?
I would assume that the contract will be that veteran minimum guaranteed and incentive built into it. Okay. And then if he does sign a 2 or 3 year deal, that's when you have some of that, the real money comes in there. The Chiefs being able to sign him to a long-term deal, like I said earlier, the Chiefs do need to rebuild that wide receiver room after this year. So maybe if Veach, believes that Odell has the ability to play for a couple of more years, maybe that's where you sort of invest some of your money there, is you're able to get a guy, because look, he's not getting a huge contract because he's coming off of a significant injury that happened so late in the season. I mean, it literally happened in the second quarter of the Super Bowl.
Yep.
You can't get injured really any later than that. So I think that if that's the way the Chiefs see it, if they feel comfortable in his how healthy, how strong that leg is, you could sign him for 2 or 3 years, and maybe you sign him to that 3-year deal. You have that team option on the 3rd year, so if something happens, you can cut him, no harm, no foul type situation. Going into next year, the Chiefs have a lot of cap space, and there's a lot of cap maneuverability that can happen. Look, Chris Jones' cap hit for next year is like $30 million.
Yeah,
$29 million.
You can, I believe the Chiefs have got to, they're going to have to extend him. But when you do that, you can divide some of that out, and you can create even more cap. So the Chiefs have a lot of cap space available right now, and there's still a ton of moving that they can do to free up more cap space. And I think that's why you're seeing the Chiefs, they didn't make any, giant signings in terms of actual money this offseason, because they knew that coming up in the next year, they were going to be able to be really flexible in how they're going to spend their money.
Hey, Reset, what's up, buddy? Wasn't ignoring you there. As far as DBs and defensive ends, yes, there are a couple that are being the Chiefs have talked to a lot of teams. I'm not going to mention any names. One of them's already been spewed all over Twitter by a national guy that I wish it wouldn't have happened, but hopefully that doesn't deter anything. But yes, there's some edge rushers that they're talking with, and one that is considered an outside linebacker, which is strange. But anyway, they are talking to a few teams, and I don't believe that we're also in a good position too. If for some reason we don't sign someone, we do have a guy on the practice squad that can fill a spot, and he's good, and that's Danny Shelton. So I think we'll be okay either way, but they are talking. As far as Odell is concerned, it's going to be. I mean, I'm not going to throw out the number that I heard, but I will say that it's a 3-year deal over. I'm just going to say over 35 million, and I am going to say that he's got a decent signing bonus. That's if it comes to fruition with us. He doesn't want to go anywhere. He doesn't want to be a 1-year rental. He doesn't want to be a one of those guys that just kind of. He's not going back to the Rams for those reasons. So, and if teams are out there looking for him right now, or they're looking at him, if they're looking at a 1-year, 2-year deal, they're not going to get him. It's that simple. They're just not going to because he doesn't want to be in that position.
So it sounds like he wants the Michael Gallup type contract that Michael Gallup got a couple years ago after he tore his ACL.
Okay. Exactly. And the one thing I will say about him is that he doesn't want to be in a place that is ice cold for 5 straight months. I will say that. So when I'm mentioning, I'm talking about the Bills or anybody on the East Coast. He doesn't want to deal with that weather anymore. So we'll just have to see what happens. Carter's in next year's first-round pick out of the equation, out of the question when discussing trades due to the draft being in KC. Yes, Carter, it is. Look, we're not going to get rid of a first-round draft pick, and for everybody out there that thinks that, and I'm not saying you do, Carter, but a lot of people assume that defensive players and things of that nature are going to go for first-round picks. They're not. I mean, unless it's a very desperate team. Right now, the only people you're going to see that's kind of gone by the wayside, and it's cost a lot of teams a lot of. People just look what the Broncos did. That detoured a lot of people. So the only players you're going to see that are really going to go for a first-round pick or more than that would be a quarterback. Defensive players just aren't going to go for that kind of money. I mean, that kind of value anymore. It's probably going to be, you're probably going to see maybe a second and a third, or maybe mid-round picks. I would say, third, fourth, but I don't see you're going to get anything out of that. And with the draft coming in Kansas City, that's all perception. I mean, when was the last time that happened? Oh wait, never. So it's going to have to be. They're doing everything they can to preserve their capital. Now, if somebody wants one of the 7s, okay, take them. But it's not going to happen. They're not just going to give up. Now they're down to. Well, they're still at 11. They really didn't lose anything because of the compensatory pick. So they're not hurting for picks. I think Odell would be a great asset because he's big, he's strong, he's fast. He can get over the tops of most of these smaller corners that everybody brought in to fight us because of Tyreek, and we went the opposite direction and brought in all big, heavy-duty wide receivers. Now, as far as our wide receivers go now, MVS is under a contract. I do believe that they're going to re-sign Juju next year.
Okay.
For all intents and purposes, and everything that I've been told up to this point, they are going to re-sign him, or extend him, I should say. So we will keep him. He's no problem, Carter. I think he's coming into his own. He's going to play well. The one thing that I wanted to bring up, and I wanted to get your guys' input, and I'm actually okay with it. It was brought up. I'm not going to say. I usually wait until I hear it from 3 people to make sure it's real. But I did hear this from one person and a vague answer from another. Frank Clark may be restructured next year if he continues to play the way he's playing right now and be extended 1 more year. If he is, it's not hurting my feelings. If he continues on the trajectory and playing the way he plays right now. So what do you guys think about that?
Go ahead, Quentin.
Frank Clark, I just want to explain to you guys that are watching. Frank Clark has had a hell of a year up to this point. When we look at what he has done, he had that flash in the pan in that playoff run when we went to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl, right? There was playoff Frank, right? He He came out and he played amazing, and he really helped us win, especially against the Titans in the AFC Championship game. Frank Clark was dominant in that game and really pushed us to the Super Bowl. So we aren't seeing that version of Frank Clark, obviously. But what we are seeing is a guy that is able to set the edge and a guy that is effective in stopping the run when guys try and bounce it to the outside. Look, one of the reasons why teams aren't running the ball to the outside. When we're getting gashed in the run game, they're running it straight ahead down the A and B gap. And part of the reason is that you've got two guys on the outside who are able to set the edge. So in terms of extending him, I think Frank Clark is at a point in his career where if he were to become more of a rotational piece, I think that would be really beneficial for him because you put a little less wear and tear on your legs. Now, it's easy for me to say, oh yeah, we could extend him, and then because it's not my money. So it does come down to whatever that cap hit is. I will say that, but I wouldn't be angry about it. Frank Clark does play a role on this team, and he is a good player. We as Chiefs fans, I just feel like with what we spent for him in the draft, and then that contract, looking back at it, I think it's sort of hard for some of us to swallow because we haven't seen what we expected when we got him. But, he did help us win a Super Bowl. Straight up.
Well, everybody has to realize, too, that at that time, regardless of what anybody thinks about his contract, that was the market value for him.
It was,
had BJ Kissel came on our podcast and said the exact same thing. It was the market value. And everyone was so irritated. And I was like, well, we got a guy who helped us win the Super Bowl. I don't think the defense would have played that well if they had Frank Clark on there. Because, Frank Clark had 2 sacks in the divisional round. He had another sack in the he had one sack in the AFC Championship game. And then he had 2 great plays in the Super Bowl. So, there's just so many different factors that come to play. And kind of look at Frank Clark's contract. I think it got restructured towards 2 years, $36 million. You're looking at $18 million a year. Look, I think that's something that the Chiefs can try to work around and maybe get that cut into a little bit more piece. But I do agree with Quentin. Frank Clark, if you can put him as a rotational player and kind of let some other guys start starting and then get some other people in to help, I think that's going to help him because, number one, it's going to stop the wear and tear. Number two, he's going to have 12 to 15 plays where we know he's going to be going hard and get to the quarterback. And that's what we need because Frank Clark has really stepped up this last couple years. This last season compared to what we've seen in the past. And we know he's been doing a lot of things, but to see what was the last couple of years, to see what he's doing now, I think he can really help this team. Judging by his press conference, I'm not going to repeat what he said, but
no, we can't.
Frank is back. And that's what you need because the defense has a different attribute. And I love Tyrann Mathieu, and I'm glad he changed the culture of defense. But we're at a new level where the defense has taken another level from it was let's get a stop every other to the bend don't break to where we have this defense now to where the most points they've been allowed upon is 31 points. And a couple of those touchdowns was garbage time touchdowns. But they have for the most part, have done everything they can do. So I think if you can keep them on this team, help them keep learning, have Frank Clark teach guys like Carl Loftus and then get some other guys drafted in to help.
That's the thing.
It's only going to help this team because Frank Clark seems invested. He's not like these guys we've seen in the past who come in, they collect a check and leave. They're not helpful. Frank Clark seems legitimately invested to help this team. You don't see other players staying after helping their teammates. We've seen Tabaha Ali when he helped Bosa, but you didn't really see that happening within the Chiefs team as a whole. And I really think having him here is just going to help this team even reach a higher level of the defensive play than what they were the last couple years.
Well, and also with you have to have veteran presence on a defensive line. And I'm not saying Chris Jones is not that, but Chris Jones is not an edge rusher by trait. He's an interior guy. You want somebody that can teach these guys how to play the game, which he's been doing a really good job with working with Carl Loftus. And Frank is really – a lot of people don't realize how much he struggled with over the last 3 years especially. And he's really doing his best in a situation that most people wouldn't be able to get out of bed. So I don't give him as much flack as everybody else does, just simply because I know his situation. And he's kind of now we talked about it way before he even brought it up on his, when he finally brought it up and publicly came out with it. And he still didn't tell everybody everything. And that's his choice. If he doesn't want to, that's on, that's him. But he deals with something that most people could not get out of bed with. I promise you that. And he comes out, he fights through it, he plays through it, he practices through it, and he went through a little bit of depression over it. His game wasn't where it was. He wasn't playing as well, as we know, and it kind of hurt him in the off season. Andy, again, we talked about this on the podcast as we found out that Andy was going to have or did have conversations with Clark about his future and if he wanted to continue to play ball and what he was doing to his future contracts. Being in, I guess I should say, being in the position that he was in or putting himself in. And he took Andy's advice. He did everything Andy told him to do. He's thinner, he's faster. And look, it's very hard for me to say this, but there's not many guys that I've ever seen that can jump off the ball as quick as Frank can at 28, 29 years old.
And I'll tell you this, Quentin and I were at training camp, and then I went with Keaton that following couple days later. Quentin, wasn't Frank Clark's very skinny and a lot faster than what we used to see him as?
Yeah, he looked like a piece of paper. My dude has, he definitely lost some weight, and not that he was like a big dude to begin with.
No,
Like he wasn't fat or anything.
He had a gut, and his gut's gone.
Yeah. I will say this, and then I want to get to what Arrowhead Chief podcast. I'll get to what you asked in a second. The best offensive lines in the NFL have 5 guys that stay in the game the entire game. The best defensive lines have 8 guys, 7 guys that constantly rotate throughout the game. And so if you're able to keep a Frank Clark on the team and you're able to sort of build depth at that position, not just in case somebody gets injured, but so you can have fresh legs when the Chiefs are up by 14 and there's, 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, you can just bring in guys that can pin their ears back and go after the opposing quarterback. So you can never have enough pass rushers, especially in a league where that's all you do is throw the ball. So unless you're like Baltimore or the Eagles. Okay, Arrowhead Chief podcast asked if do you think they will franchise tag Juju and then work on a deal? I don't know if they end up franchise tagging him because you got to remember Orlando Brown may end up getting franchise tagged again. I think if they're going to use it, I imagine that's where they're going to use the franchise tag, is they're going to tag him again. And I don't see them being able to work out a deal. Not with the way he's played. He hasn't played, definitely not like a tackle that should end up being the number 1 paid tackle in the league. So I think if Juju is going to stay in Kansas City, I would imagine that he works on a deal just before free agency opens up when you're able to exclusively talk to your players. If the Chiefs keep Juju, you'll see that contract signed during the season or within the first couple of days.
It'll be done before March.
Yeah, that's what will happen. I don't think they end up franchise tag him. I just think that they get it done.
Yeah, and they've got a lot of cap room to work with next year. And, again, we're in a very unique position with Mahomes' contract. So if we ever need a little bit of money, and not only just his contract, it's a lot of players. Kelsey gave up some money because, basically he wanted to help the team. He didn't give up any money. Let me just put it this way. He restructured it to where he got paid up front. A little bit of signing bonus the $3.5 million that he turned into a bonus, he got paid. He got handed a check for that. So it didn't affect us, and it didn't affect him. He still got the same amount of money. It's just
it's how you rework everything, basically.
And that's all
taking the time.
That's credit to Veach, because nobody out there, there's not a team out there that's been able to do what Veach has done with the players, and that's all from a confidence level. When you have players not only that they have so much continuity, but they also have so much confidence in their ownership, their coaching staff, and the other players on their team, then you're more apt to get a player that will restructure a contract into a bonus without having an argument over it, or a player that wants to get out. You don't have that situation with us. Now, when Tyreek was here, we had, and anybody that's listening to this, everybody knows, what's up, Corey? Everybody knows that we had an issue bringing in wide receivers. One of those issues was Juju. He wanted to be more of a role in the offense. He knew that with Tyreek Hill, it wasn't going to happen. Just like every other wide receiver that we had spoken to prior to Tyreek being cut or traded. So it's not hampered us in any way. Now, did Tyreek have a great game? 188 yards. Great. I'm happy for him. But we are not hurting because he's not here. A lot of people seem, and they really believe, that if we had Tyreek, we'd have won those 2 games. Not necessarily, because you're still. If we didn't have him, we wouldn't have the other guys that we have right now, or if we still had. So when you limit that team down to one or two wide receivers, and then hopefully, God forbid, that D-Rob doesn't run backwards or miss a wide open pass, or you got somebody else out there that can't make a catch. This has just opened up our horizons. It's not hurt us in any way. I think, in fact, I'm almost positive Juju continues to play the way he's playing right now. He's going to get a contract with us. MVS has already signed on. He's coming out. Everybody. It takes time for everybody to gel, and that's what they did last week. They gelled. They finally came into their own. And for everybody out there that's listening, realize that we have played basically 5 or 6 playoff games in the first half of the season. We have played 5 playoff teams, or 6 playoff teams, really, in the first half, and we lost one of them. So I'm not complaining. I mean, this is and not to mention the fact that this is the fastest that a Spags defense has ever taken off in his career, and that's. I know it's the opposite side of the ball, but think about it. He's had guys that have played together for 2, 3, 4 years and didn't take off as quickly as this group did, that are 3 rookies in the backfield, a bunch of day one starters, guys that have never been in this system, and they're all just tearing it up. No more older guys, no more guys that are slow. They're, with Willie Gay being out, we saw the difference with him being out. Even though Harris did a good job, it wasn't Willie Gay. He's more athletic. He plays better with Bolton. They have a continuity together. They know their thoughts. They know which way they're going. They know how to communicate together. So it's just, we're in a really good position when it comes to these players. Do we need, what's up, Thiz? Do we need a couple of guys? Maybe. Is it going to hurt us if we don't go out and get a couple of guys? Probably not, because we do have a defensive interior guy sitting on the practice squad that's really good. And like I've said on the past shows, the guy takes up 2 roster spots. He does not mess around. The dude can take on 2, 3 dudes, and that's Danny Shelton. So if we don't end up for some reason getting one of these guys that we talked about earlier in the show, or we talked about on prior podcasts, in it out, I should say, we do have options. I'll put it that way. So as far as the offensive side is concerned, Mahomes makes everybody better. Chris Conley was better because of him. Albert Wilson was better because of him. Even Charkandrick West was better because of him. Everybody knows this. So we can bring in anyone right now, other than with the exception of somebody that just cannot pick up the playbook or any plays in the playbook, and Mahomes and Andy will make them better. But you still have to have continuity, and you have to have some. When you gel, you got to stay gel. You got to keep those younger guys like a Juju that's only 25. I know it's crazy to think. He got drafted very young, and he's been in the league for 5 years. So, but he's only 25 years old. You keep those younger guys that are experienced. He's a veteran at 25, which is really hard to think about. That, but he is. And now that he's figured this offense out, and he's getting more familiar with the playbook, he's getting more familiar with the unorthodox play of Patrick Mahomes, and it's obvious that MVS is getting it figured out. As much as I hate to say this, if we're going to bring somebody in, and that team that we're trading with between now and Tuesday is in desperate need of a wide receiver, which I know of one that is, you might have one odd man out, and I'll let you guys think about who that is. And then we got it, like Philip said, we got Tony in now. So we're in a unique situation. We don't need to do anything other than just keep who we have, maybe build upon it, and build towards the future, but not. I don't think we have to do a revamp of anything at this point, because we've done that. We revamped everything in bits and pieces, and we're still, look, one easy way of looking at this is we were a top 3 team to go to the Super Bowl prior to Tyreek's trade, and we're a top 3 team before we even stepped on a field after we traded him. That should say it all. And right now we're sitting at, we're at 2 losses, and we're just getting better as the year goes on.
And then one thing I'd like to add to that is just, were you going to say something, Quentin?
Oh, just have some stats that back this up.
Go ahead.
So these were all
Carter.
stats that I had on Thursday night, Friday. At the Chiefs' offense is it's actually the most efficient offense in the NFL, and despite the fact the Chiefs are, even without the whole thing is like, how are the Chiefs doing without Tyreek Hill? Well, to this point, Mahomes is first in the NFL in passing yards that travel more than 20 yards. So the Chiefs have thrown the ball past 20 yards 32 times, and Josh Allen and Jared Goff were tied at 25.
Oh, by the way, Josh Allen just threw another interception. Gruder told me. But go ahead.
One of the more impressive stats in the Chiefs' offense is Mahomes' touchdown rate percentage is 7.6. Now, Allen is at 7%, but still, we talk about how the powerhouse is that the Bills' offense is. The Chiefs are right there, and actually are better. And you have to think about too, Josh Allen they were blowing teams out, and they were taking advantage of playing bad teams. And the Chiefs haven't had that opportunity to blow out bad opponents. So you just add a little context to some of these stats, and we've seen how this offense can sometimes spin its tires and not go anywhere. But this Chiefs offense is so efficient, and it still has that big play capability.
It still has that dynamic capability to do what they need to do.
Especially now that I do think MVS is going to have some more of those big plays. I think they're starting to really get their gears going. We've seen early in the year that there were some wide receivers that they were being overthrown, and they just didn't seem to be all on the same page. Well, now we're starting to see MVS is now catching those balls that are thrown, deep down the field. So this Chiefs team, coming off a bye week, I think they're going to continue to be an efficient offense. And we know what Andy Reid does in a bye week. We know what this Chiefs does. We know what this team does when they have time to plan out. I think this team is going to come back, and I think they're going to continue to show why Andy Reid is the best coach in the NFL.
And not only that, what do the Chiefs usually do after week 8?
They get a lot better.
They went out. For the most part, they went out. And right now, Carter, good guess, buddy. Let's see. Corey says, can you imagine Mahomes with Juju, Thielen, Sky Moore, MVS, and Justin Ross? Yeah, I can. And it just gets me excited to think about it. But I think that this team is just going to continue to get better. And now, weirdly enough, even though honestly, we've been saying it all year, I was actually wrong. They kept saying that we had the second hardest schedule in the league, but everyone else has said we have the toughest schedule in the league. So you can either say we were, first hardest team or schedule in the league, or second. But either way, nobody else can say that. So to come out and be on the top, on the good side of 500 and leading the AFC West and one game behind Buffalo, I'm not complaining. They don't have the schedule we have. So, and by the way, to get into something Quentin just brought up, Buffalo was coming out and scoring 38 points plus a game in every game except the one they played against us when we had 3 rookies out in the backfield and kept Josh Allen from throwing the deep ball. He threw it twice, maybe 3 times in that entire game. And that was barely over 20, 25 yards. He had one that was deep, but the rest of them he kept him at bay. And that's what they have to do. If they can fix the run stop, they'll be okay. And I think they're going to be able to establish a way of fixing that during this time off. But Andy is really good off a bye, and he's very good in the second half of the season. And now that, quote unquote, we're going into the easier part of our schedule, which is still not that easy, but comparative to the teams that we're playing and what we thought they were going to be prior to the season starting and what they are now, it's gotten a little easier.
Well, let me read off the schedule for you guys. So next Sunday, the Chiefs will play the Titans on a Sunday night game. The week after that, they'll play the Jaguars at home. So back-to-back games are at home. Then they'll travel to L.A. and play at their home at 3/25. Then the Rams come to Kansas City, 3/25, November 7th. Then the Chiefs travel back to the Bengals and play on December 4th at 3:25. Then they end up traveling to the Broncos that following week, December 11th, which I believe is a Sunday night football game. Then they play the Texans at noon, the Seahawks at noon. They have them at home. The Broncos come to Kansas City the new year, first game of the new year, and then they play the Raiders at away. So, I mean, that's a pretty favorable schedule. You're playing the Titans, Jaguars, Chargers, Rams, Bengals, Broncos, Texans, Seahawks, Broncos, and Raiders. I mean, that's a pretty favorable schedule. They really shouldn't lose any of those games.
Yeah,
Huh?
the Seahawks are a tough football team.
I think the Seahawks are tough, but I think our defense will be able to handle them. Even the Rams might be a little bit difficult. But I think if the Chiefs stick to their game plan and know what they're doing, they can win those games and help them. Because when you're looking at that compared to other teams' schedule, like the Bills, they're playing a whole different area. I mean, they're playing against right now. They're playing against the Packers, but they're going to play against the Jets. Then they're going to play against the Jets, the Vikings, the Browns, the Lions, the Patriots, the Jets again, the Dolphins, the Bears, the Bengals, and the Bills. I mean, that division is kind of difficult for them. So they may drop a game or two in their division. The Jets aren't playing around this year.
No.
And the Dolphins might be able to do something. And the Patriots, you never know. They're kind of iffy. But, I mean, the Chiefs could very well catch up with the Bills due to the schedule. Because the Chiefs had harder games in the beginning. And they played really, really, really hard. And down the stretch, as Arrowhead Chiefs podcast is saying, if they can go 10-0 down, ideal 10-0 down the stretch, or even from 8 to 10 games, I'd be happy with that, finishing 12-5, 13-4. I mean, that's pretty good. You can't theoretically win every game of the season, but I think this team has a chance to do a lot of things and also try to experiment, because you're playing against teams that are not as great as you. But I will say this: the Chiefs cannot play down to the competition.
No,
they cannot if they want to win these games. Say they were to trade for some players. These are the games coming up we can try stuff against them, because obviously they're struggling. I mean, you're going to play against Derrick Henry next week. He's going to run all over the Chiefs. I'm a little more confident with our defensive line, more specifically our linebackers. I mean, every game I'm kind of looking at, the Chiefs can do a lot of different things that can help them, but they're going to have to work really, really hard, because some of these games, like the Bengals are going to try to the Super Bowl, the Rams, I mean, they're going to have to dig deep, because we've seen the Chiefs lose games they shouldn't, and that's one thing we do not want.
No, and I tell you, as far as playing against Derrick Henry, we have really stuffed him. You know, the last two times we played him, the last time I think he only had 59 yards. So I think, given the fact that we do have a better defensive line now and we do have better linebackers, I think we can keep him at bay. And with the fact that they really don't have much of a wide receiver core and a quarterback right now, unless they leave the guy that we wanted to be a first-round draft pick in for, any period of time and he gets better. But Tannehill's hurt. He's not 100%. Now, supposedly he had an illness this week. I don't believe that to be true. But he ended up playing tonight, correct? Or did
they started their backup.
Willis.
Did they start Malik?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. They did. Malik, I wanted him to go in the first round. I thought for sure he would. That's the kid. If nobody knows his background, he went to Purdue and transferred purposely, I believe it was to Liberty, to help them get more exposed, to get more of a, more eyes on them during this. He's just one of those guys. And I think he's got the talent to be able to be a great NFL quarterback. I was really shocked during the draft. We sat here and did a live draft thing, and I was really shocked that he didn't go sooner than he did. But it is what it is. We'll have to see if he continues and plays really well. If he does, Tannehill might not be there. And it's similar to like with Baker Mayfield. Look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. As much as Kayla hates when I say this, he's going to be a backup somewhere next year.
He will. I mean, it's at that point, unfortunately.
Yeah, he is. He's not going to be a starting quarterback somewhere next year. It's just not going to happen unless some team is extremely desperate. There are a couple teams out there that are struggling with their quarterbacks, but I just don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting smarter now. Teams are getting smarter, and they're seeing the writing on the wall. What do you say? I've seen stuff about Tony.
Yeah, I want to talk about Carter just brought up. So he's talking about how there were some rumblings about how Tony was exaggerating his injury, his like hamstring. So he asked how much of that is true and how long will it take before we see him in action. So there were some conflicts between him and the previous coach regime that was in New York, and in the current one. There were bumping heads about the playbook and his usage. So there was that, and I think sort of that relationship broke down. So I don't know how much of that is exaggerated. We're not him. We're not in that training staff room. We don't know how much of that there is. He does have a long list of injuries. So there are some people that have tagged him with the injury prone. That's kind of true. It's not completely false. He's had a lot of soft tissue injuries, which definitely is something to be concerned about. Guys who are fast, really athletic wide receivers, we see those soft tissue injuries come up.
Tyreek has them all the time. So,
so it's just one of those things that you hope, a new place, maybe they can help him out with that. But in terms of how much how can we see him personally? I think that he'll start in. He'll have snaps against Tennessee. I feel confident in saying that. Personally, I think he's going to be the new punt returner. I have been a Sky Moore defender on this show about him, just holding back some of the criticism when on his punt returns, because I think people forget or just don't know. Sky Moore didn't return punts in college.
No, he did not.
And, it's difficult to try and learn that on speed. There's only so much you can practice when it comes to returning punts. So, when you see your first knuckleball kick for the first time, it's hard to adjust to that in game, and that's what happened.
Nobody's ever going to know that ball's going to die unless you practice it numerous times.
So that a lot of that comes with experience. Now, I do think that Tony has a lot more explosiveness than Sky Moore does, so I do think there's that. What really excites me about Tony is his change of direction and his cuts that he has, because man, his acceleration is insane. His ability to stop on a dime, change direction is crazy. And so I think that's what will make him a better punt returner, is just having that experience and being able to change direction as fast as he can. So
I think they're going to rotate him in and out. I don't think they're going to cut Sky Moore completely off, because look, you can't do that to anyone because it'll kill their confidence level. But also, there's no way of – you don't learn unless it's hands-on. And those are just licks. You got to take those licks and move forward. And he's learning. The kid's still got dynamic speed. He's got great hands. He's going to be a weapon that we're going to utilize for the next 4 or 5 years, if not longer. So Veach didn't draft him for just to have fun with it. He did it because he knew. And I think we were in the middle of doing a Spaces at that time, and myself and Mark Ganells were like, please, 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 please. And then Veach grabbed him, and it was just pure excitement because we both wanted him really badly because we knew what he could do. As far as Tony's concerned, yeah, he's had some soft tissue injuries. It is what it is. I'm not really concerned with those as much as most people are. And a lot of that's going to come with experience and knowing when to get down, when not to push yourself to too much of a limit. You can't go past your limit when it comes to working out or whatever the case is. That's why Tyreek, for everybody that's out there listening, that's why he struggled towards the later part of his career with us when it came to hamstring issues, quad issues, things of that nature, and cramps, because people don't realize that for years he ran in the off season every single step at Arrowhead Stadium for 8 hours a day. That's what he did. So when you push, and he ran hills constantly, when you push yourself to a point where you're stretching, your muscles can only stretch so far and then they rip. Your hamstrings, everything else stretches so far and then they rip. They knot up. If you're not, I think that guy's had more IVs last year. He probably looked like a damn drug addict. It's just something that he had to have simply to keep on the field.
Yeah, he's always drinking pickle juice. I noticed last year, before we kind of noticed that he was getting, and then also his heel was always popping up on the injury report. So that's just kind of the one thing we see. Going to Carter's question, about character for Tony. I do think with Coach Reed, he is obviously a player coach, and I think he's able to connect with these guys and bring them into this culture. And one thing I've noticed, Reed is a player coach that can get down to these players' levels and can really help me. He does, obviously, he's played the game and he knows kind of how things work, but he's one of those coaches where you know that who's going to be there and try to help you. He's not one of those coaches that are going to use you and toss your side. He's going to try to help make you a better person. And I really think that that's kind of one thing we're going to see. Now, like Quentin said, Tony and then the coaches in the Giants regime were kind of going at it. So we don't really know all the issues. I guarantee they both sides did not handle it appropriately. But what I would say is this. If there is someone I think who can help maybe turn it around, wherever the issues were, I think it is Andy. Because Andy has done a lot of things like this before. And I think it's only going to get better for this team.
Well, and also people are, again, nobody's in that locker room. So nobody's there every day to see what his character actually is. Just because somebody says he has a bad character or the press in New York says it doesn't mean it's actually true. It doesn't mean he has bad character. It may mean that he was not being utilized the way he should. He was in the wrong system. He knew that. They knew that. Veach wanted him out of the draft, period. It usually comes full circle for Veach. Whenever he wants somebody out of the draft and a team that Veach looks at that team that drafts him and goes, okay, well, he's not going to fit in that system. I think I'll wait a year and grab him. As long as he's not injured. And that's what he normally does. So I'm not going to sit here and say that he's got bad character because I don't know the man. I don't know what went on in that locker room. Everybody said the same thing about Odell Beckham Jr. when he was with the Giants, that he was a diva, that this, that, and the other. It was actually all over Twitter on one of the people on our in Chiefs Kingdom, and he snapped back and told him, you're wrong. It wasn't me. It was a bad coaching staff. It was a bad situation all the way around. Nobody knows unless you're there. And for everybody to speculate and throw out these false rumors about somebody, or whether they're false or not, unless you're in the room every day, day in and day out, unless you know what's going on, you can't say that. Right now, the Giants are riding on Saquon Barkley. That's a huge thing. I mean, they are living on that guy. And rightfully so. He's, in my opinion, the best running back in football. I've said this for years, or ever since he's been in the league. He's playing out of his shoes. So when you're not getting the ball, you're not being treated correctly, and then you also had issues with prior coaching staffs, and then maybe your GM, it's just time to split. Sometimes it's just time. It's good to part ways. I don't think Veach would have ever wanted him to begin with if he wouldn't have fit in our system. Very rarely does Veach find someone and say, okay, well, just because he looks great in college, I'm going to take him anyway. He looks at every aspect. Will he fit in the system? Will he be able to learn the playbook? What's his GPA? Is his football IQ high enough? There's so many different variables that Veach looks at other than just his ability to play the game. It's insane. So for him to bring him in and automatically say, okay, we're going to use him at some point this year, and there may be a wide receiver that's not here any longer. That says volumes to me, and I trust everything Veach does at this point, and I'm not being a homer. That's just, he's proven it to us. I don't worry anymore like I used to. So, and by the way, one more thing. As far as him sitting, I guess faking an injury or whatever they spewed out, that, from what I understand, that wasn't just on him. He was basically told to sit out too. So when that happens, it's kind of a mutual situation. I don't think he was 100% faking anything. I think he was okay to play. And because of the situation, it didn't work out in his favor or theirs. He put up a tweet that said, I'm fine, I can play right now. And that ruffled a few feathers. Even Ian Rappaport said something about it and immediately deleted the tweet. But again, we don't know the whole situation, so we're not going to speculate on it. Those are just things that I've heard. I don't think he's got a bad character. I think he just was in the wrong system. And again, like Caleb said, if anybody can fix if there's a character flaw, if anybody can fix that issue or improve upon that, it's going to be Andy and this team because the culture is there. So
here's what I'll say.
What's up, buddy?
Winning solves a lot of issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's just one of those sayings, but it's true that when you're in, look at some of the guys that have, we thought that they were guys that kept their head down, and then when when a team starts to struggle, then that locker room implodes, and you see that when a guy will get upset, like Antonio Brown, right? For years, he was a guy that kept his head down, and then the team really starts to struggle, and he loses it on the public domain. So there are some guys that when you're winning, you're able to keep your head down, and you're successful. You're getting your targets and all of that. And
you're able to keep grinding.
Yeah, you're able to continue the marathon that is the NFL. So I will say this too: the New York media is very scrutinizing on its players on all of its sports.
They're brutal.
This is not a football thing. This is the Yankees. This is like all of their sports. The New York media comes after their players hard when this stuff happens, whether it's they're struggling or off the field thing. That's just how it is. So to be able to come and play with Patrick Mahomes, who is a guy that will help you succeed. We've seen what he's done even with like Watson, right? He texted Watson and asked him to come to Pat camp, even though he didn't even know if he was going to make the team or not. So he's able to communicate with these guys. So I think it's going to a little bit of everything. I think it's going to be that sort of new environment. You're on a winning team. You're on a winning organization. You got the best quarterback in the NFL. I think all of these things will combine. If there is a problem there, I think that'll sort of solve some of that. Plus, now you're on your second team. You know that you have more. Your chances of continuing to be in this league are more limited now, right? So that the trade could also be a wake up call, like, oh, I need to get my crap together because I don't know how much longer I can do this. The average NFL player is in the league for 3 years.
Yep.
So you need to. This might be one of those things where you can just sort of throw it in your face that you need to be ready to come and play. And I think he will. And I think it's an exciting – I mean, you watch some of the highlight stuff when he was in Florida or, some of the plays that he has when he was on the Giants. There was a 37-second video clip that got tweeted out that ended up on my timeline, and it's him against the Saints. And it was just some of the cuts that he was able to make. I mean, how could you not be excited? Because this is the kind of player that Andy Reid brings in, and he's super successful with him.
Well, and the thing is with him is like he's going to be able to, and I'm not saying he's Tyreek, and don't get me wrong, because he's not, but he has Tyreek-esque moves, and he may be able to fill a role that another player wasn't able to fill. I'm not going to get into detail on that, but I think that's something that they really see in him. And again, to get what you said, Quentin, I think it's an East Coast thing because I got to be honest. I mean, Buffalo media, Buffalo fans, they're hard as hell to deal with. The Giants, the Jets, New England, they all are they're from their media down to their fan base. And I think their fan base gets it from their media because everybody is so just angry over there that, they could have, look how many times you've seen, I mean, how many times did they go to the Super Bowl, New England Patriots? What did they go, 9 times? And their fans were still mad. It's like they just wake up pissed. I don't know what it is. But if you want to wake up that way, that's on you. If you're unhappy working in Buffalo, move. I mean, there's a lot of cities that want you out there as a journalist. You don't have to stay there. In fact, we got a guy that writes for us that used to write in the East Coast. He's no longer there. He's down in Dallas. And he's an NFL reporter, insider. So I don't know, man. It's crazy to think that some of these players they have to deal. I mean, and look, no matter how you look at it, the Philadelphia fans are just as bad because they broke Carson Wentz. They broke.
Yeah, that whole thing there is very unfortunate because it's like he did a lot of great things, and then that was like a whole other hour just diving into all that happened.
Yeah,
but I mean, I will say this: Chiefs Kingdom is one of the best fan bases in the world. They're always there for the players. Now we always have that small majority that want to sometimes cause problems. They don't represent the entire group, so that's kind of one thing we look at here. But I mean, the fans have always been very grateful and helpful to everyone, and I'm just hoping that the fan base can just continue to show up and show out throughout the season, because I think this could be a special team season for the Chiefs and most important for the fans to witness everything. Because look, Monday to Tuesday, a move could be made, and they could also make a signing after that. So there's a lot of different things that's going to happen, and if they can possibly do that, it's going to be better for this team as a whole. So I just can't wait to see what's going to happen. A lot of great things will come about because of this.
I agree. I mean, with Kansas City, we do have a phenomenal fan base. Now, do you have your 5%ers that are going to argue if the sky is blue when it's pouring down rain, or if it's raining and they're going to tell you the opposite? Yeah, that's common. There's a group of people in Chiefs Kingdom that are just that. I mean, they just love to argue. They love to, I don't know if it's jealousy. I don't know if it's just they hate their lives. It is what it is. But it's a lot smaller group of people than you get within other fan bases. So we are extremely lucky to have the fans that we do. And the players know this for the most part. Yeah, you had a couple of guys that had something to say last year, and then they realized that most of the guys that were saying this stuff were either very unhappy people or kids. And they weren't around, they don't appreciate what we actually have going for us. Our window is totally different than any other football team. No matter how you look at it, our window is totally different because of our coach, because of our quarterback, and because of our GM. It's that simple. We have a 10-year window where most teams have a 2 to 3 year window. And Mahomes has proven it. No matter who you bring in, he makes them better. Mm-hmm. So Andy makes them better. So I'm really not too concerned with anything moving forward. And honestly, with this my phone starts ringing about 4 o'clock in the morning every day, asking me questions about who's getting traded. Are we doing something today? Is this real? Is this not real? Look, there's so many damn rumors out there. It's hard to keep track of them all. I mean, it really is. I mean, I've heard things that aren't even fathomable, but they're still talking. I mean, just one guy has to say something that has more than 1,000 followers, and the next thing you know, it's all over Twitter. There's 5 teams that the Chiefs have talked to that I know for a fact. Some defensive players, some offensive players. One of them we got. I will say this, that there's been some showcasing going on the last 3 games with the Chiefs, showcasing a player or 2, and there's a reason behind that. So let me see. Do you guys think the Chiefs will make another move? Also, love you guys' articles. Thank you, man. Yes, I believe they will. As long as everything goes smoothly, I do believe they will. Can't say 100%, but right now I think they will.
Same here. I think that they'll make a move.
Yeah.
Now, depends on what type of move, but I think that they will make something. My hope is that they sign such and such player, JP and Quinn, we've all talked about. Hopefully they can get him. So.
Well, look, okay, and here's another one really quick. Hurricane Dave, what's up, man? Whatever happened to Omar Bayless? He didn't pan out. He hasn't learned the playbook yet.
He didn't make it out of camp, actually. He got cut in the first or second wave of cuts. And it sucks because he was a great player. He's a great player, but just due to how extensive the wide receiver room was, they just decided not to have him. Now, he could be brought back next year, but I will say this. If Justin Ross wasn't here, he might have Justin Ross spot in the practice squad. That's what I feel personally, but Justin Ross is on a whole nother level than what we see with Omar Bayless.
And look, with Omar Bayless, he was a great player. He just didn't pan
just
out.
Didn't pan.
Happens. Everybody that we talked to said that he was doing so well during the off season, and they decided to go another direction. You can always find somebody that's better. Find somebody that may fit into the scheme better, and you only have so many roster spots. We assumed with what we heard that he was going to do really well. It didn't happen. So it is what it is. It's no different than Cornell Powell. We drafted him. Where's he at? He's on the practice
squad
2 years straight. So everybody assumed that he was going to be on the field this year because he had sticky hands in training camp. Well, he's not. So you can be wrong here and there. You can be right. Players cannot complete what they're supposed to complete, may not be able to grasp everything, but it is what it is. Again, it's just part of the game, and we've got better players now because of it. So It's all about system fit. Anyway, moving on. But I do believe there will be a couple more players. Does anybody see the score? I can't see the score of the game.
Buffalo's up by 10, and there's 38 seconds left in the game. So
they're gonna win. Buffalo wins. Not surprising.
Okay. 27-17 is the final.
Okay.
Oh, it's over?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, this is what it is. They're right now. Green Bay is just struggling with players. It's not Aaron Rodgers. It's who they stuck him with. I don't think I don't know, man. That's a rough situation out there. So really can't change that until they decide they want to bring in people to help him out. They left him high and dry as the way it looks. Let's get into one really quick thing. There was something posted today that really kind of, and I am not a Tom Brady fan, never have been, but I think there was a lot of rude things said about his wanting privacy because they got divorced. One guy put out, "I want to publicly say I want privacy about my divorce." Okay, well, he's saying that because he's a public figure, and so is his wife, for that matter. So they're saying it because everybody's going to be up in their business. So to request privacy because you're going through something is very understandable, and it should be very easy to just do. People are making some very rude comments, not just to him but to her as well, and I think that probably should stop. Do I agree with what Brady did? I don't know his whole situation. I just know that they grew apart. Okay, well, maybe they did. That's on them. For all intents and purposes, everything that was told to us and that was floating around the league as well is that he picked football over his family at 45 years old. And she put her career on hold so he could play football for 22, 23 years. But regardless of the situation, regardless of what you think of Brady, I think the comments probably should stop because he's struggling, and that's on him to a degree because he came back. And to be quite honest, I think, with what with the way he treated some of his offensive linemen over this past 4 or 5 games, they've kind of quit on him. And I've kind of heard that as well, that they've kind of quit on him. So, it's a tough situation. The guy needs to just be left alone. He probably should just go ahead and retire now. I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to finish out the season probably now, especially since they did get divorced. He'll probably finish the season out, and whatever the record is, the record is. They've won 3 games. I mean, who would have ever thought that Brady would be in this situation? But he is. So nobody thought they were getting divorced either. It just came out of nowhere. I mean, that thing was filed on Friday morning, and it was completed by 1 o'clock on Friday. It was finalized. So this is something they've been discussing for a while, and it came to a head. It's not the first time that she's left. She did it in 19, she did it in 21, and now she's done it again for the final time. So it is what it is. Just give the guy his privacy and let him go and quit making rude comments. It's not helping him. It's not helping his wife. It's definitely not helping his kids, and it makes you look rude and kind of ignorant. But with that being said, I just wanted to throw that out there because after seeing some of that stuff today, I was like, wow. I mean, there are some brutal people in this world.
Yeah, there are. There are.
Regardless of what you think of somebody, you got to take it easy when it comes to that stuff. But
it's kind of hard for me to say that just because. So for those of you who don't know, my history, like my background is actually in news coverage, election coverage, government stuff. That's my background. So for someone I understand him wanting and asking for privacy, and you should you shouldn't harass him or anything like that. But he is a public figure, and for somebody that is struggling on the field, it's hard to just say that his off the field stuff has nothing to do with it. So as fans, I do think it's fair to know what's going on in his private life because he's a public figure, and that stuff does have an impact on the field. So I do think the public has the right to know what's going on in his private life because he's made himself public.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
And that's true. I mean, people are, I guess the whole thing is, yeah, you're public. You're a public figure. You've made yourself a public figure. So did your wife. But that does, there's a lot of public figures out there that you don't hear one thing about their private life, and they do that for a reason. They don't show their kids pictures all over the place. They don't do a lot of things because they don't want that, the people in their ear. They don't want the media. They don't want the TMZs up their butt. So they try to stay away from that. Tom's pretty egotistical, and he wants to be seen and heard. He wants to be talked about. He wants to be relevant, more than most at his age. I don't know, but regardless, it is what it is. People give him a break and move forward. That being said, do you guys got anything else?
No, I think I'm good to go. You have anything, Quentin?
It's not Chiefs related, but the Royals hired a new manager today.
Yes,
They did.
They did.
Tell us a little bit about him.
His name is. Hold on, I want to make sure I get this right. Matt Quaterro.
Quaterro.
I think is how you say his name.
Yes.
So he was the Tampa Bay Rays bench coach for the last 4 seasons. He spent time in Cleveland as a hitting coach there, an assistant hitting coach. So I think it's interesting, the decision they made. I'm happy they went out of their organization. Tampa Bay is known for developing pitching, so I think that's good. We have a lot of young pitchers here, and it's interesting to see them go and get somebody from Cleveland. I think the fact that he was at Cleveland for a while, we know that the Royals owner does have ties there, so I think that probably helped. But the Royals need somebody. They needed somebody new, and hopefully he can drag some of his buddies from Tampa Bay to Kansas City to help develop some of our young pitching. So it's also kind of weird that that this happened before the World Series is over, because for some reason baseball doesn't like anything happening before the World Series is over, which is why, despite the fact this is official. He will not have his press conference until Thursday when the World Series is done.
Okay.
So we'll know more information.
Well, sometimes that happens in the NFL as well. They don't want anything announced until after the Super Bowl and all that stuff, so it's kind of understandable a bit. I was really hoping that Aaron Judd would get to the World Series because he had such a phenomenal year without the roids. So the guy, 62 home runs, had a couple more in the playoffs. Just an animal. And he's only 30. Can you imagine what he's going to be like for the next 5 years? I mean,
really good.
He's so good. He's very tall, and he's got such a long arm span that he's able to just crush, and he's got great vision, just crush a baseball. But to break the records that he broke that stood for, 80 years? It's pretty phenomenal in my opinion. So anyway, with that being said, we appreciate everybody that joined in, all the questions. If you have any other questions, please hit us up on Twitter. We will be doing live streams a lot. Hopefully you guys can all join in, and we will talk to you guys again on Tuesday.
One thing real quick, for all you guys who are on here are new, please subscribe as well, so you'll get the notification and turn on notifications so you know whenever we live stream.
Correct. And also check out our website. I mean, everybody that's been checking it out is really liking what they're getting. We're putting out a lot of good stuff. We got a lot more stuff coming, and we got a great video reel on there with different insights into different parts of the NFL. We're going to have another podcast joining pretty soon. Not Chiefs related, and we will have another Chiefs related podcast, but we have a NFC podcast coming that's going to join our network. So, and also check out Thiz on the 100-yard dash. This guy knows what he is talking about when it comes to football. I don't know how to express that anymore. Not just because he's a great friend, he just really knows football. He's extremely intelligent when it comes to it, and he follows everything. So, and for somebody that's as busy as him to be able to keep up with all of that, my hat's off to the man. So, but make sure you give everybody a follow. Check out primetimesportstalk.com That's one of our other websites, and that's a national site. So if you want to know about baseball, basketball, hockey, the rest of the NFL, even NASCAR, jump on there and follow. With that being said, we will talk to you guys again on Tuesday. Appreciate you joining. Peace out.
See you next time, guys.
Thanks for the questions.